Hey, Ferdy, what's up?
So this is actually season 2 of your beloved podcast. So we are doing this now for 6 months, a little bit over 6 months, and now I decided it's time for season 2. And season 2 is all about tech stories. It's the stories you never heard, amazing stories on tech, on things that happened, how developed, companies, personalities, and telling a little bit the backside of the things which you usually would not be able to listen.
6 months. Wow. Time flies, right? I'm always down for the untold side of things. What's the first story we're diving into for season 2?
So today we're talking about the Kodak story, which I think probably everyone who is a little bit into tech has known that story. Because Kodak, they invented the digital camera, and it was exactly that invention which caused their demise.
It's wild to think they had it in their hands and didn't run with it. Sounds like a good one to kick off the season with. I've heard that even after Sasson showed them the prototype, there was a lot of internal resistance because film was still printing money. Like, why mess with a good thing? It's kind of short-sighted, right?
Yeah, this is right. But before we go into this, I think there are several listeners who are joining step by step. So right now we have 25 people following this podcast. And if you like this kind of content, please make sure to follow, because I'm a small podcaster and I have a few dozen listeners every month, and we are building up. We are growing steadily, and you can join also the small little spaceship. So my name is Ferdinand Huber. I live in Germany. I'm an engineer, electrical engineer with specialization in telecommunication and electronics. I have an MBA in managing science and technology. My journey now led me to discover this podcast. I hope you stay along for this journey, because today we will start with the first story of the season 2 of the podcast, which is the story of Kodak.
Those behind-the-scenes stories are always the most fascinating. It's easy to focus on the Elon Musks of the world, but the real meat is in understanding how things actually happen, the struggles, the near misses. I'm definitely on board for digging into those. So, Kodak. Let's start with Steve Sasson and that first digital camera.
Let's start from the beginning, because you need to imagine a company which defined how to capture photos and which defined a whole industry around it.
Like, they literally held the future in their hands and decided they didn't want it. That's almost unbelievable.
My personal understanding is that they didn't push strong enough. But our tale actually begins with a quite unassuming lab from Eastman Kodak in 1975. There is a young electrical engineer, you said his name already, Steve Sasson. He was fresh out of his Polytechnic Institute, just graduated, and his boss, his supervisor, Garrett A. Lloyd, he gave him a very simple task, or maybe a straightforward task. He said, try to build an electronic camera using a commercially available charge coupled device, which is a CCD. That's basically an optic sensor which is able to transform light into electric signals. That small project which he gave to this new joining employee of Kodak, little would he know that this actually would be the birth date of a revolution.
Right. A pretty open-ended assignment, basically. Here's a new tech. See what you can do with it. And from that, Sasson built the first digital camera.
He took a few months, took very different components together, he built the first digital camera. And while it was not like a camera you imagine today, it was more like a size of a toaster, and or like a printer, even nearly 4 kilograms or 8 pounds of weight. And it was a monster of technology, quite heavy, clunky. It had a movie camera lens, like the one used in cinematic movie cameras. It has some Motorola parts and 16 batteries. And it has also that CCD electronic sensor, which was brand new in the market. And the result was a black and white image camera, which recorded on a cassette tape. You know, the cassette tape, the one like our grandfather or the older people of us, they used to listen music. It's exactly that kind of tape was used to record the digital file of the picture. And more painstakingly, his camera was only with the resolution of 0.01 megapixel. And the time to get this image, it took him 23 seconds for only one picture. You needed to have a special monitor developed only for this camera to be able to visualize the photo which was only taken.
So Sasson shows this behemoth of a camera to Kodak execs, and they call it cute. They saw it as a technical achievement, a neat little project, but completely missed the disruptive potential. They were still riding high on film and honestly probably didn't want to cannibalize their own incredibly profitable business.
Exactly. Because he took that invention, he showed to the board, and that's exactly what happened. So the board said, oh, that's cute, but please keep it hidden. Because it has the potential to ruin the whole business model which Kodak was built on. That exactly was the moment where the demise of Kodak started to take place.
A little chilling moment, isn't it? The innovation was actively suppressed because it threatened the status quo. It really speaks to a failure of vision. It wasn't a lack of technology, it was a lack of willingness to embrace change.
But they knew the potential which this invention had. And the warning signs didn't stop there, because in 1981, around the time when Sony demonstrated its prototype of the electronic camera, the Mavica, which recorded analog images to electronic media, at that time, Vince Barbara, then he was head of the market intelligence. With the full backing of Kodak CEO, Barbara launched on an extensive research effort to analyze the core technologies, how the world will develop, and how this technology would develop in future. And the result of this study was a prophecy which turned out to be very accurate. And they had two news. One was very bad news and one was a good news. The bad news was the digital photography had the potential to replace Kodak's established film-based business. So all of what Kodak had built up so far would become obsolete with this new technology of digital photography. This was very clear for Kodak in 1981 already. But the good news was that this development would take around 10 years to happen. So giving Kodak plenty of time to react and to organize this transition internally.
It's like being told a meteor is heading towards Earth, but it won't arrive for a decade. Plenty of time to build a defense system, but also plenty of time to just ignore it.
Yeah, astonishingly, during that crucial 10-year window, Kodak did little to prepare. They chose a path of profound irony because they used digital technology to improve the quality of the film photography. Crazy idea, which completely off of what the market was demanding, is that in 1996 they introduced Advantix preview film and camera system, in which Kodak poured over 500 million in development and launch cost. And its key feature, if you ask me, do you know what that was?
Sounds like it had to be something pretty out there.
That you could preview digitally, but you still needed to print it. What a crazy idea. So you can have a digital camera, you take a photo, you can see how the photo looks like, but you cannot get it out there. You just need to revelate the film. And then you need to pay for the prints, of course, because that's the business model.
They fundamentally misunderstood what people actually wanted from a camera. It's a perfect example of innovation for innovation's sake, without understanding the user's needs.
Completely failed, and they wrote off all the investment, 500 million, so they never sold any considerable amount of cameras, not even to get close to what they invested on developing it. And then the final fate was sealed from Kodak was sealed in 1989 when the current CEO retired, because they had two candidates for the future of Kodak. So one was Phil Semper, who deeply understood digital technology and was into that digital photography and knew all the implications. And the other candidate for CEO of Kodak was K.R. Whitmore, who had spent 3 decades entrenched in the traditional film business. So And who they choose? Yeah, they choose Whitmore. And Whitmore just continued the path on the cameras with film and all this film and chemical and basically the same path which it was taking the whole time.
A disaster. It's almost like a cautionary tale of how not to run a company. Choosing the candidate who was comfortable with the old ways of doing things, despite clear warnings about the future. So, fast forward. How did Kodak eventually end up filing for bankruptcy in 2012?
Yeah, it was a decline, but very, very, very steady decline. And in 1993, even years and years after they already far behind of any digital technology which is out there, they started a campaign saying that they wanted to embrace digital photography and even went really aggressive on the marketing. But it just was too late. It was just too late. In 1994, even Apple joined the competition, joined this business of camera, and launched the first color digital camera under $1,000. And the ironic is that it was made by Kodak. And we know the big players on it, Sony, Canon, and so many others players which joined the market. And in 2007, the very year Kodak was attempting to rebuild its digital efforts, Apple launched the iPhone, which then really started the smartphone age.
The iPhone, yeah, that was a game changer. That's like the final nail in the coffin, right? It wasn't just about the camera, it was about the entire ecosystem. Kodak files for bankruptcy in 2012. Okay, so Kodak actually didn't completely disappear, which is surprising, honestly. They restructured during bankruptcy and pivoted away from consumer photography, focusing instead on commercial printing and packaging solutions. And here's where it gets a little weird. They've actually become a player in, wait for it, advanced materials and chemicals. They're making stuff for OLED screens and even exploring blockchain technology. Essentially, they've reinvented themselves, leveraging their chemical expertise in new ways. It's not the Kodak of our grandparents, but it's still around. It's an interesting case study in how a company can adapt, even after seemingly catastrophic failure.
But the story is really mind-blowing because the inventor of the digital camera failed because of the digital camera. How is that even possible? So it's kind of a very deep denial or deep persistence to want to stick with the current business model and not willing to move on or embrace something completely new, something which can disrupt the whole industry. And yeah, they failed to prepare for this new development. And I think we can also reflect in our own life, in our own professional life or even private life, how many things are out there which are really capable of disrupting how we do things. And as we grow older, we get more and more resistant to new technologies, to new possibilities. And you have so many new tools. Are we using that tools? Are we getting informed? Are we leveraging what are the possibilities out there?
That's a really good point, Ferdinand. It's easy to get stuck in your ways, to cling to what's comfortable. And the Kodak story is a pretty stark reminder of what happens when you refuse to adapt. Something we all need to be mindful of, especially in a world that's changing so rapidly.
Next time when you take a picture, you remember the profound irony of Kodak stories. So the inventor of digital camera, born from our own ingenuity, became the very enemy that dismantled the film empire. So it stands for a staggering testament to how even the most established giants can falter when they fail to embrace the future.
Well said, Ferdinand. A pretty powerful lesson to end on.
So, and then you, my dear listener, thank you for listening. I think we came to the end of this podcast with this insightful story. And I talk to you in the next one when we explore more interesting, insightful stories on tech, business, and life. See you then, take care, and bye bye.